Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to dig into something that can really level up your learning.
Yeah, especially if you're deep in the code like me. We're talking about retrospective.
Retrospectives.
Now, you might be thinking,
Okay.
hold on, isn't that something like software teams do?
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. But what we're going to unpack today is how to apply this super powerful tool to your own personal learning journey.
Okay. So less team huddle and more like a personal power-up.
Exactly. Imagine this. You're wrestling with a really tricky algorithm,
Yeah.
maybe on Algo Academy. Anyone who's prepped for these tech interviews knows that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
A retrospective helps you take a step back
Okay.
and ask yourself, did that finally click after I actually, sat down and coded it out? Or am I still just kind of swimming around in theory?
So it's about going beyond just checking a box and really understanding why certain things work for me and others just fall flat.
Precisely. And those insights, those are pure gold, especially in the fast-paced world of coding where things change all the time. Knowing how you learn best, that's your superpower.
All right. All right. You've convinced me. But where do I even begin?
Think of it like this. You've just finished a coding sprint. Maybe you tackled a bunch of problems on Algo Academy, or you dove into a new framework. Instead of just rushing to the next thing, you hit pause.
Okay.
And you ask yourself 3 questions.
Let me guess. What went well?
Mm.
What could be better? And what will I do differently next time? I've heard those before.
You probably heard measure twice, cut once, right?
Right.
This is how you apply that to learning. But here's where it gets interesting for coders specifically. Let's say you breeze through array problems, but graph algorithms, those always trip you up. That's a data point. Why? Was it the resources you used? Was it the way you were trying to visualize the problem? Did you try enough debugging techniques before you just threw in the towel?
So it's not just about the code itself, but like how I tackled the whole process.
Exactly. Were you laser focused, or were you constantly, let's be honest, context switching between your editor and social media?
Every time.
Did you fully utilize Algo Academy's AI features, or did you just try to brute force the solution? This is where retrospectives get really powerful. You start to spot your own patterns.
So am I. Like I'm tracking things like how long I'm spending on each problem, what resources I used, even like my mood. That seems like a lot.
Think of it as building your learning playbook. You don't need to track everything at once. Start small. Maybe just focus on one area. Like, how are you managing your time during these coding challenges? The key is consistency and honesty. Those FAing interviewers can spot a BS answer a mile away. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of Fang, how does all of this tie back to those, coveted tech interviews?
Yeah.
So we're talking about more than just, did I solve the problem, yes or no?
Right.
It's like a deep dive into my own brain under pressure.
Precisely. Imagine this. You've just finished a mock interview. Maybe it was like a whiteboard coding challenge.
Well.
Maybe it was a system design question. Now, instead of just, okay, what's the next practice problem? Wow, take some time to replay that interview in your mind. What went well? Where did you stumble?
Okay.
Did you kind of freeze up when they asked you about your approach, even if your code was solid? Those are gold nuggets for improvement.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this is different from just like grinding leak code problems.
Yeah.
But those FAing interviews, man, those are tough. I've heard stories about obscure algorithms, system design questions that would make even like seasoned engineers sweat.
No, it's true. Those interviews can be intense. But here's the thing. FAing companies, these, we all know those acronyms.
Right.
They're not just looking for coding robots.
Right.
They want to see how you think, how you break down problems, how you adapt when you encounter something you haven't seen before.
Right.
And that's where retrospectives become your secret weapon.
Because they force you to slow down and actually analyze your thought process. I'll admit, I'm usually just racing to the finish line. Not really, dissecting every wrong turn I made.
Exactly. It's like the difference between sprinting and marathon training. You need both.
Right.
Let's say you're prepping for an interview at Google, known for their emphasis on algorithms. A retrospective helps you go beyond just memorizing solutions. You start to ask, why did my initial approach fail? Was there a more efficient data structure I could have used? Did I actually explain my thinking clearly even when I was nervous?
So it's almost like I'm creating my own personal interview prep boot camp tailored to the specific companies I'm targeting.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. Remember those cringeworthy code snippets we talked about earlier? Well, digging those up can be really illuminating.
You mean like the code I wrote a year ago when I thought I knew everything?
Yeah.
Believe me, I've got plenty of those buried in my GitHub.
That's the spirit. Look for patterns in those old projects. Maybe you notice that you consistently struggled with a particular concept, like dynamic programming. Or maybe you see that your code was just like really poorly organized, really difficult to read.
Ouch, yeah. I've definitely been guilty of writing code that only made sense to my past self.
We've all been there. But that's the beauty of it. By analyzing your old code, you're not just identifying weaknesses, you're also celebrating how far you've come.
Right.
It's a powerful reminder of your own progress.
Okay, that part is actually kind of motivating.
Yeah.
So I'm reflecting on past projects, I'm dissecting mock interviews, anything else. This is starting to sound like a full-time job.
And here's the best part. It doesn't have to be. Even dedicating like 15 minutes after each coding session or mock interview can make a world of difference. Think about athletes, right? They review game footage. They're not reliving the whole game, just those crucial moments.
So it's not about adding more hours to my day, but about using the time I already have more strategically.
Exactly. Now let's talk about some like ninja level techniques. Have you ever considered like a code review retrospective with a peer?
You mean letting someone else loose on my precious code?
Yeah.
That sounds terrifying, but also kind of intriguing.
It can be incredibly valuable. Find a coding buddy, maybe someone also prepping for interviews,
Yeah.
and just swap code.
Right.
You're not looking for style points here. You're looking for like the logic, the clarity, the approach.
I guess getting a fresh perspective could uncover some blind spots.
Yeah,
We all have those, right?
absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of just talking through your code with another human being.
Yeah.
Sometimes the act of explaining your thought process out loud, it can help you solidify your understanding. It can even help you spark new ideas.
It's like having a built-in debugger. Okay, you've sold me on peer reviews. But what about when I hit those inevitable walls?
Mhm.
We've all been there, stuck on a problem for hours, ready to chuck the laptop out the window.
Hmm.
How do retrospectives help in those moments? So we're staring down like a nasty bug or that algorithm just isn't clicking. How does looking back help in the heat of the moment?
That's where those three little questions, they become your lifeline. But this time, instead of the big picture, we're going granular.
Okay,
First one, what have I already tried that didn't work?
right.
Was I just like too focused on one approach? Did I totally misinterpret the problem statement? That's a classic.
Oh, I've definitely been there. Spending hours optimizing code only to realize I completely missed the point of the problem.
We've all been there. That's
Yeah.
why like documenting your steps, even if it's just bullet points during that retrospective,
Okay.
it helps you break that tunnel vision.
Right.
What resources have I actually used? Or did you just skim the documentation? Or did you really dig in? Did you jump to Stack Overflow too quickly and miss a chance to like reason through the issue yourself?
So it's about being more deliberate about how I use those resources, not just treating them as a crutch.
Precisely. And that leads to the final, and this is the most crucial question. What's my mindset right now?
Okay.
Are you approaching this with curiosity or just pure frustration? Are you open to trying a completely different approach, even if it feels counterintuitive?
I'm sensing a theme here. It's not just about the technical stuff. It's about how I'm approaching this whole process mentally.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty powerful. But let's be real, even with the best techniques, sometimes you just hit a wall. I'm
Yeah.
curious, have you ever used retrospectives to like push past those limits, those moments where you feel like you've hit your ceiling?
Absolutely. I remember when I was first learning about distributed systems, talk about a steep learning curve.
Oh, yeah.
I was hitting roadblock after roadblock. I was ready to give up. But then I did this deep dive retrospective on my learning process, and I realized I was so focused on understanding every single detail. I wasn't seeing the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
So I shifted my approach. I focused on understanding the core concepts first, then gradually diving deeper into the details. That changed everything.
So you used a retrospective to essentially like debug your own learning process.
Exactly.
That's brilliant. It's like you said earlier, retrospectives are more than just a tool. They're a mindset.
Exactly. And that mindset, that commitment to continuous learning and improvement, that's what sets apart good coders from great ones.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on learning, not just for coding, but for anything challenging.
I'm thrilled to hear that. Remember, the most important step is to simply get started. Don't overthink it. Just hit pause, reflect, and see what you discover.
And to all our listeners out there, what will your next retrospective reveal? Until next time, keep coding, keep learning, and keep reflecting.